All right, so are you ready to dive into another one? Today, we are talking about Things We Never Got Over by Lucy Score. This book has been getting a lot of attention lately, and we're going to see what all the fuss is about. We've got a whole bunch of reviews here, both from professional critics and like everyday readers. And our mission is to figure out if Things We Never Got Over is worth your time.
Well, I'll tell you right off the bat, this is one of those books that people seem to either love or hate. You don't see a lot of middle ground with this one.
Ooh, now that sounds interesting. So tell me, who exactly is this book for? Like, what kind of reader would love this?
Well, think about someone who loves a ton of drama and installist and all that grumpy sunshine stuff. And they also have to be okay with characters who don't really act their age, even if they're supposed to be adults. If that sounds like someone you know, or maybe even yourself, then Things We Never Got Over might be the book for you.
Okay, well, I'm already a little unsure about this one. Immature adults in romance novels. Ugh. Sometimes it works, but sometimes it's just too much. So what about the writing style? Does that make it better or worse?
A lot of people describe Lucy Score's writing as simple and straightforward, which can be a good thing if you just want something easy to read. But one thing people criticize is that it can be repetitive, especially when it comes to Naomi and her thoughts about coffee.
Oh, yeah, I've seen people talking about that online, the coffee thing. How bad does it get?
Well, there's this one part where Naomi says, and I quote, "I'm going to die, or at least have a very bad day, if I don't get some caffeine in my system, and soon."
Oof, yeah. I can see how that would get old after a while. Like, we get it. You like coffee.
Yeah.
So is there more to Naomi than just her caffeine addiction?
I mean, she's generally a likable character, but some reviewers thought she was kind of one-dimensional. You know, the whole always the caretaker thing is like really emphasized, and some readers might find that a bit too simple.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Is she actually a strong character on her own, or is she just there to take care of everyone else? It's a tough balance for sure.
Exactly. And speaking of tough, let's talk about Knox, the male lead. This is where people have some seriously strong opinions.
Oh boy, here we go. I'm ready for this one. Tell me everything.
He's been called a dreamy bad boy, but also a toxic, controlling nightmare. And honestly, both sides have a point. Like right at the beginning, he actually mistakes Naomi for her twin sister and then humiliates her in front of everyone.
Whoa, not exactly a great first impression, huh?
Nope, not at all. And then there are some, let's just say, interesting things about him. Like he pees outside, even though he obviously has a bathroom.
Wait, really? He pees in his backyard? What? Why is that a thing? Is that supposed to be attractive?
That's the thing. Some readers actually find it kind of cute, while others are just totally turned off. And it gets even weirder. He tries to make Naomi quit her job at his bar, even though she really needs the money.
Hold on a second.
Hmm.
That is a huge red flag. How are we supposed to see this as romantic at all?
I guess the book tries to make it seem like he's just being protective and alpha, but yeah, it's definitely problematic. There's a line between being protective and being controlling, and Knox crosses that line way too often.
Are there any good things about this guy at all? Or is he just a walking red flag?
To be fair, a lot of people did like that he's protective of Wei Lei. She's Naomi's niece, and she's 11 years old.
An 11-year-old. In a romance novel. That's actually really surprising. How does that even work?
You know, Lucy Score actually manages to write Wei Lei as a pretty mature character, especially for someone so young. She's smart, but still acts like a kid, and that seems to work with both Naomi and Knox.
Well, that is interesting. I'm a little intrigued, but still not sold on this whole thing. So we've got a hero who might be kind of a jerk. A heroine who's maybe too perfect, and a surprisingly likable 11-year-old. Anything else I need to know before I try reading this?
One more thing, get ready for a long one, because this book is over 500 pages.
500 pages. Oh, wow. That's a big commitment. It better be really well paced and keep me hooked the whole time. That's it.
Well, the pacing is another thing that people have different opinions about. Some people loved how immersive it is, while others thought it dragged on a bit. There are also a couple of subplots, like there's an evil twin sister thing and some drama with Child Protective Services, and some readers felt like those were just unnecessary distractions.
Yeah, I can see how those could go either way. A little extra excitement or just too much filler. It's a tough balance to get right. So overall, would you say the length is justified, or is it just a case of quantity over quality?
It depends what you're looking for in a book. If you love to really get lost in the story and don't mind a slower pace, then you probably won't mind the length. But if you like things to move faster and have a tighter plot, it might feel kind of slow.
Okay, good to know. I'm definitely someone who prefers books that keep me on the edge of my seat.
Okay.
So let's talk about the bigger picture here. How does Things We Never Got Over compare to other popular romance novels?
It's actually interesting to compare it to It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey. They both have that over-the-top romance and flawed characters, and they're both set in small towns. And the funny thing is, they both got mixed reactions for similar reasons. Some people loved how escapist and dramatic they were, but others thought some of the stuff the characters did was messed up.
That is really interesting. It seems like there's this trend of people being okay with flawed characters and even toxic relationships because it's all about escaping from reality. But is that really something we should be celebrating?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's important to be aware of what these books are saying and to think about them critically, even if we're enjoying the story. Just because something seems romantic in a book doesn't mean it would be healthy or okay in real life.
Right. We can enjoy a book and still realize that some parts of it might be harmful.
Absolutely. And I think that's why discussions like this are so important. We can talk about different points of view and analyze the tropes and make better choices about what we read.
So back to things we never got over. After hearing all of this, I'm still not sure what to think. Is there anything about this book besides the drama and the controversial characters that really stands out?
One thing that really struck me was how strongly people react to this book. It seems like people either absolutely love it or they hate it. And that tells me Lucy Score knows how to create characters and situations that really resonate with people, even if not everyone loves them.
Yeah, that's a good point. Whether you love it or hate it, this book definitely gets people talking. And sometimes that's all you want in the book. Something that sparks conversation and makes you think.
Exactly. Even if you don't agree with everything the characters do or every twist in the plot, things we never got over, definitely stays with you. And with so many books out there, that's a pretty big deal.
So we've looked at all these reviews and talked about all the different parts of the book, but I still have one big question.
Hmm.
Why is this book so popular, even with all the criticisms? Is it the escapism, the over-the-top plot, the addictive writing style?
It's probably a combination of all of those things. Lucy Score is really good at writing in a way that pulls you in. It's easy to read and keeps you wanting to know what happens next, even if things get a little crazy.
Like a guilty pleasure that you can't put down.
Exactly. Plus, it has all those popular romance tropes. Grumpy sunshine, forced proximity, small town setting. It's like a checklist for readers who love those kinds of things.
And sometimes we just want a fun, lighthearted read, even if it's not like a literary masterpiece.
Totally. We all need a break from reality sometimes, and Things We Never Got Over definitely gives you that.
So basically, it sounds like this book is a bit of a roller coaster. One minute you might be totally into it, and the next minute you might be cringing. It's definitely a book that starts arguments, which isn't always a bad thing. It makes us think about what we like and what we're looking for in a romance novel. Like, are we okay with some toxicity if it means there's a lot of passion? Do we want those crazy scenarios, or do we prefer something more realistic?
That's what's so great about reading, right? There's something for everyone. And sometimes the books that people argue about the most are the ones we remember the longest. They make us think about our own beliefs and maybe even help us understand ourselves a little better.
So to all our listeners out there, as we finish up this deep dive into things we never got over, we'll leave you with this. Why do you think this book has been so popular with so many people, even with all the problems people have pointed out? What is it about this story that has people talking and arguing? Is it because people want to escape from reality? Or is it because of that bad boy thing that everyone seems to love? Or maybe it's something deeper, something that speaks to our own desires and fantasies, even if we don't want to admit it.
Whatever you think, we hope this deep dive has helped you figure out what to expect from Things We Never Got Over. Whether you decide to read it or not, we hope you'll think about it critically, make up your own mind, and most importantly, enjoy exploring different stories and points of view. Happy reading, everyone.
Yeah, I could see how those could go either way. Like sometimes you want a little more to the story, but sometimes it's just too much extra stuff. So is it worth it? Like, is the book good enough to make the length okay?
I think it depends on what kind of reader you are. If you like to really get lost in a book and you don't mind if it takes a while to get to the good stuff, then the length probably won't bother you. But if you're the kind of person who wants things to happen quickly and have a more focused plot, it might feel like it's dragging on a bit.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah.
I definitely like books that keep me guessing and keep things moving. So let's talk about how this book compares to other popular romance novels.
It's actually pretty interesting to compare it to a book like It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey. They both have that really dramatic romance, and the characters aren't perfect, and they're both set in small towns. And it's funny because they both got kind of mixed reviews for the same reasons. Some people loved how over-the-top and escapist they were, but other people thought some of the things the characters did were messed up.
Huh. That is interesting. It seems like these days people are more okay with characters who aren't perfect and even relationships that might be a little toxic because they just want to escape from real life. But is that really a good thing?
That's a really good question. I think we have to be careful about the messages these books might be sending, even if we're enjoying the story. Just because something seems romantic in a book doesn't mean it would be healthy or okay in a real relationship.
Exactly. We can still enjoy a book even if we realize that some parts of it might be sending the wrong message.
Totally. And that's why I think it's so important to have conversations like this, where we can talk about different perspectives and analyze the tropes and make better choices about what we read.
So let's get back to things we never got over.
Mhm.
I'm still on the fence about this one after hearing all of this. Is there anything about this book besides all the drama and the characters that really makes it stand out?
One thing that really surprised me was how strongly people feel about this book. It seems like people either absolutely love it or they absolutely hate it, which tells me that Lucy Score knows how to write characters and stories that people really connect with, even if not everyone loves them.
Yeah, that's true. Whether you love it or hate it, this book definitely gets people talking. And sometimes that's all you want in a book, something that makes you think and starts a good conversation.
Right. Even if you don't agree with every decision the characters make or every twist and turn in the story, Things We Never Got Over is a book that stays with you. And with so many books out there, that's pretty impressive.
So we've gone through all these reviews and talked about all the different parts of this book, but I still have this one big question. Why is this book so popular, even though it has all these things that people criticize? Is it because it's so escapist? Or because of the crazy plot? Or maybe it's the writing style that just sucks you in?
I think it's probably a mix of all of those things. Lucy Score is really good at writing in a way that makes you want to keep reading. It's easy to read and it keeps you engaged even when things get a little wide.
Like a guilty pleasure that you just can't put down.
Exactly. And it also has all those classic romance tropes, the grumpy one and the sunshine one, forced proximity, the small town setting. It's like she's checking off all the boxes for people who love those kinds of books.
And sometimes we just want a fun, light read, even if it's not like a super serious book.
For sure. Everyone needs a break from reality sometimes, and Things We Never Got Over definitely gives you that.
So it sounds like this book is kind of like a roller coaster ride. One minute you're totally loving it, and the next minute you're like, what is happening? It's the kind of book that people argue about, which isn't always a bad thing. I mean, it makes us think about what we like in a romance novel. Are we okay with a little bit of drama, even if it's not totally healthy? Do we want those over-the-top stories, or do we want something more realistic?
That's what's so cool about reading. There's a book out there for everyone. And sometimes the books that people argue about the most are the ones we remember the longest. They make us question what we believe in and maybe even help us understand ourselves a little better.
Yeah, and sometimes those books are the ones that really stay with us, even if they're not perfect.
Right. And it's not always about finding a book that's like technically perfect or anything. It's about finding a book that you connect with on some level.
So after going through all these reviews and hearing what you have to say, I'm still not sure if I should read Things We Never Got Over. It sounds like a lot of drama.
It definitely is. But sometimes a little drama is exactly what you're looking for.
That's true. I guess it depends on what mood I'm in. So
Yeah.
what would you say to someone who's on the fence about this one?
I'd say go into it knowing that it's a very specific kind of book. It's not going to be everyone's cup of tea.
Yeah, it seems like you either love it or you hate it.
Exactly. There's not a lot of middle ground with this one.
So if you're looking for a really dramatic romance with the characters who are flawed and make some questionable choices, it might be worth checking out.
Yeah, but if you're looking for something more realistic and maybe a little less intense, you might want to skip this one.
So for our listeners who have stuck with us through this whole deep dive into Things We Never Got Over, we'll leave you with this one last thought. Why do you think this book has become so popular? Is it because it's so different from real life? Or is it the characters? Or maybe it's the writing? What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting how much this book has resonated with people, even with all the things that people have criticized about it. Maybe it's because it taps into something that we all crave, a little bit of drama and escapism.
Maybe it just hits the spot for a lot of readers, even if it's not perfect.
Right. And at the end of the day, that's really all that matters.
So whether you loved this deep dive or you're still not sure about Things We Never Got Over, we hope you'll keep exploring different books and authors and keep those conversations going.
Happy reading, everyone!